Well, hello and welcome again to our reading of the Acts of the Apostles, and we're up to chapter 22 and verse 17. So, egenetot demoi hupastrepsanti. So this is still part of Paul's speech as he's related his conversion, and then he's going to go on and talk about how he's being sent off to preach to the Gentiles. So it came to pass for me, hupastrepsanti, returning from hupastrepho. This is the aorist dative participle. So it came to pass for me, as I was returning into Jerusalem, another genitive absolute, and instead of having another moi, we now have a genitive absolute, and I praying in the temple, genesthai me. So it happened for me, and so it's en ektase. So it happened for me in a trance. So in other words, I fell into a trance. Kai eidane auton. This is, all these infinitives are after egeneto. It happened that. So it happened that I fell into a trance. Very slight odd grammar here to put a genitive absolute here as well with the mu, but that's what he's done. But all these infinitives are after egeneto. So it happened to me as I had returned to Jerusalem, and while in prayer in the temple I fell into a trance, and I saw him speaking to me, or saying to me, him referring to God. Spuson, this is the imperative here from spudo, hasten. So make haste and go out, en take is adverbial here, quickly, from Jerusalem. Dioti, because ou paradexontai, they will not receive marturian, your witness, peri emu, regarding me. Cargo for kaego, and I said, Lord, hutoi episantai, they know that, ego amen, I was. So we get a periphrastic construction here. So I've got the verb to be plus the participles. That I was phulakizdone, I was putting in the prison, I was putting in prison, and deron, from dero, participle, and I was beating in the synagogues those believing episet upon you, so those who believed in you. And hotep, when the blood of Stephen your martyr, ex kuneto, now I've had this verb before, it's to shed, or to his blood was poured out, shed. So when the blood of Stephen your martyr was shed, it's a late form from ekkeo, to pour out, and I myself was, again the periphrastic construction here, I myself was ephestos, standing against him, and son eudokon, and approving, almost encouraging, and guarding, perhaps minding the clothes, this is the outer garments, the cloaks, perhaps tone and irune tone auton, of the ones killing him. And hyreo is to take up. It's a little bit like our unpleasant expression in English, to take someone out. Well, this is a similar sort of thing from anhyreo, contract verb. It's very old. It goes. You see this in Homer, of killing somebody. So I was standing beside them, or standing against him, and I was approving or applauding, and I was minding the cloaks of those who were killing him. And he said to me, Paru, go, hoti, because I, apostelo, notice the one lambda in the accent here, so I will send you on a makran, we have to supply hot on a long journey to ethne, to the Gentiles. So, well, they could bear it up to this point, and then suddenly the Jews he's speaking to can't bear any more. So akuon de autu aquitutu tu logu. So they were listening to him. Kuo takes the genitive of person. Up until literally this account, so this part of the story. Kai eperan ten phonein auton, and they lifted up their voice, saying, Ire apotes ges top toyuton. Literally, take this man, such as he is, from the land. So, remove such a man from this land. For kathaken, it is not fitting for auton saying for him to live. Paul was obviously not very popular wherever he went, it seems. Krau gadzonton de auton, and we get lots of the genitive absolutes here. So they crying out, and riptuntone. Now you can see from this it's a contract verb. This is from ripteo, which is an alternative form from ripto to hurl. Normally the most common word is ripto. We get a variant here, ripteo, but the word, that variant goes back as far at least as Demosthenes. So they crying out and hurling their garments, kai konioton balonton, another genitive, part of the genitive absolute. So they throwing, konioton is a diminutive from konis, meaning dust, into the air. And the Kiliarch bid him, eis egasthai, this is a passive infinitive, to be brought into the parambolan. We've had that before in this chapter. This is the barracks, it's the military camp. Apas is a participle, so having said, it's almost having given orders for him, mastixin anetazesthai. Now, anetazesthai is a fairly rare word. It appears only once in the Septuagint. It's a rare word, and even in the Septuagint, it's in one of the late writings, the book of Susanna. So it means to examine something. There are other variants of this etasdo. This is anetasdo. And mastixin is dative plural with whips. So literally, to examine him with whips. Doesn't sound a very pleasant experience. So having ordered them, having told them to examine him with whips, in order that epigno, he might know, that is the Kiliarch, dihain aitian, through what cause, so for what reason, thus they were crying out against auto him. So epiphonio, to cry out against. And when proetanan, from protano, to stretch out. So when they had stretched him out, tois himasin, these are probably with straps or thongs. These are sort of leather ties to tie him down before they were about to whip him. He said to this is the centurion, the hekontarchon, the ruler of 100, so perhaps centurion, the one who was standing there. So Paul said to the centurion who was standing there. Now we get this a construction again. You've got to supply something like tell me. So tell me if existing it is lawful for you mastisdain to whip. That's the now mastix is the whip. This is the verb mastidzain, to whip. Romion, that's a Roman citizen, and one who is arkatakriton, and one who is not condemned, i.e. without trial. So is it lawful for you to whip a Roman citizen who has not had a trial, not been found guilty? accusas de. So the centurion, having heard, parelthon, he went back, or he went beside the Kiliarch. Having done that, he reported, saying, Tit meles poien, what are you about to do? For this man is Romios, is a Roman citizen. And the Kiliarch, having come to understand to Paul, he said to him, Tell me, are you a Romios? Are you a Roman citizen? And he said, Nay, yes. And the Kiliarch asked him, replied, the Kiliarch replied, Ego polu kephaliou ten politean tau ten ektesamen. Now, ektesamen means I possessed. Kataamai is the verb when you're looking it up. So kataamai, this is the aorist middle. So I got possession of this politean, this citizenship. And we get a genitive of price here, really. It's literally for much. Kephalaia is principle of debt. It literally is this. Kephalaia is it's the head. It's connected with the head. It's the main amount of money you put down as your principal. So we might say with a great outlay of money here. So I possess this citizenship for a great outlay of money. And Paul said, Ego de kai gegenemai. And understand, I got it, understood, because I was born to it. So it's literally, I have been born. Well, perhaps you supply Romios, a Roman citizen. Now, it's not exactly clear how Paul could have got Roman citizenship at birth. It's possible that, which was not a common practice, but it did occur, when a particular person did some great important deed for an important Roman, then that person got citizenship, and that citizenship then gets passed on to offspring. So perhaps, if not Paul, then perhaps an ancestor of his had done some great deed for a Roman and been given it, because otherwise it's not clear how Paul gets Roman citizenship, given that he's a Jew. Euthus un apistesan apautu, therefore those being about anestasdein, there's that verb again, to interrogate perhaps him, they stood back from him. And the Kiliarch was afraid, recognizing or knowing that he is a Roman citizen, and that, now periphrastic pluperfect here, ein de decos. I must confess not having seen this form before. This is from deo. This is a perfect participle from deo, and this is being used periphrastically here with the past tense of the verb to be. So knowing that he is a Roman citizen and that he had bound him, he tied him up. The laws concerning the treatment of Roman citizens, of course, were quite different to the treating of others. And on the following day, wishing to know to aspales. Well, it could simply be adverbial, take the whole thing adverbially, so this is neuter here. So to know clearly, or to know accurately, or it could be to know that which is clear, but it's probably easiest simply to take this as adverbial. So with certainty. Toti, what thing is this that had been accused, understand, of him by the Jews? So slightly odd phrasing here. So on the following day, wishing to know accurately what thing had been accused, understand, of him by the Jews, Elusen auton, he released him, and he bid the chief priests and all the Sanhedrin, Sunelthane, to come together, and having brought Paul down, so having led Paul in, estesen es autus, he caused him to stand among them. So he caused him to stand in their midst among them. Artenisas, so Paul, staring intently at the Sanhedrin, he said, Andres Adelphoi, men, brothers, ego passe sunodese agathe pepolitumai. Now, polituo is to act as a citizen. So this is a perfect here, probably perfect middle. I have lived as a citizen. So it's sort of almost it's a local term. It's a word referring to city life, to live as a citizen. So perhaps you might translate here, conducted my life. So and this is with all good conscience, I have lived as a citizen, so I've conducted my life to God up until this day. So turning it around a bit, up until this day, I have conducted my life to God with all good conscience. And the chief priest Ananias, Apetaxen, gave orders from Epitasso to those standing around him to strike his mouth, to stoma autu. And at that time, Paul loses his temper a bit, I think. At that time, Paul said to him, God is about to strike you, you toike koniamene. Now, toikos, like we have takos and toikos, both interchangeable, meaning a wall. This is a vocative here. So it's O wall, kekoniamene. So this is a participle, but it's being used in the vocative. So it's a perfect participle being used as an adjective in the vocative. The cones to do with dust again. So, but here it's conia. I think the verb is coniato. So it's whitewashed wall, dusted with which is dusted with whitewash or something. So, so God is about to strike you, you whitewashed wall, and you, Cathay, sit there, crinain me, judging me according to the law, and you bid me tuktestai, passive from tukto, to be struck, paranomon, contrary to the law, or perhaps breaking the law. That must be a participle here. So, breaking the law, you bid me to be struck. And those standing around said, it's a question, do you revile, do you speak ill of the chief priest of God? And Paul now backtracks a little bit. Paul said, Uk Adain, I did not know, brothers, that he is the chief priest. Gegraptaigar, for it has been written that, and now we get a quotation, this is from Exodus 22:28. So, for it has been written that you will not speak badly of the ruler of your people. So you will not speak badly of the ruler of your people. Gnus de Paulos hoti to hen meros esti saducaion. Paul, recognizing that literally the one portion or one part of the whole group understood, esti saducaion, is Sadducees. So he realizes that half the group are Sadducees and the other half are going to be Pharisees, and of course they didn't get on very well with each other. So Paul decides to exploit that. He's nothing if not inventive. So Paul, realizing that one portion or one group of them consists of the Sadducees and the other of the Pharisees, he cried out in the Sanhedrin, Andres Adelphoi, men, brothers, ego Pharisaios eimi, I am a Pharisee. Huios Pharisaion, a son of Pharisees. Krinomai, I am being judged in regard to hope and in regard to the resurrection of the dead. Now why does he do this? Well, Luke goes on to explain. Genitive absolute, he said this, him having said this, so he said this, sorry, I should say when he said this, it's the genitive absolute here. So when he said this, egenetot, there was stasis, there was a division, and it takes a genitive essentially here, division between the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And the plethos, the multitude, eskistei, was divided from schisto, it's aorist passive here. For the Sadducees say there is no resurrection, nor an angel, nor spirit. So they did not believe in angels or resurrection or spirit. But the Pharisees, homologusin, they confess literally. Now this is slightly odd, ta and photera, both things. Well, it's slightly odd because there were three things mentioned, the anastasis, the angelon, and the pneuma, but anyway, that's what it says. So the Pharisees believe in all of these things, you might say, literally confess both of these things. And there was a great cry, and certain ones of the scribes of that part consisting of Pharisees, so one group of the Pharisees, or one group of the scribes from among the Pharisees, anastantes, standing up, diamakonto, imperfect, they began to protest, they began to fight or protest, legontes, saying, we find no evil in this man. If so take this bit first. So if he has spoken of a spirit, if a spirit, if a pneuma, if a spirit has spoken to him or an angel, we find no evil in this man. So the subject of the first verb is pneuma. So if a spirit has spoken to him or some angel, then we find nothing evil in this man. Polester ginominos stasios, and much division or dissension having arisen, ginomines, the Chiliarch was frightened lest diaspaste, lest that Paul be rent asunder, be torn to pieces, from diaspao, be dragged from one group to the other, so be torn to pieces by them. He bid the stratuma, the army, kataban is an aorist participle, neuter agreeing with stratuma. So he bid the army to go, going down, harpasai, from harpasdo, the infinitive, to snatch him, that is Paul, from their midst, and to lead him, understood, into the parembole, back to the camp. And on the following night, the Lord, having stood beside him, said, take heart. This is thaseo is the verb, this is the imperative. We get a contract there, it's thasee. It becomes thase. So take heart, for hos diamaturo. Now this is tricky here because despite the ending here, this is a second person, aorist middle. Second person aorist middle. The ending is eso, and that contracts back to give you an omega. So the verb here is diamartureo, but this is a second person aorist middle. For you have borne witness to the things regarding me in Jerusalem. Thus, so since you've done that, thus it is necessary for you also, martyresai, to bear witness in Rome. And that's where we'll leave this reading.